Hello, greetings, and welcome back to the BFC, where we go into the trenches of the trading world. We have quite the show lined up tonight. But before we get into it, I want to say thank you to all my subscribers and followers, as the last couple years have been one hell of a journey, guys. And I want to give a shout out to Jess in LA. Now you know why I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't talk on the phone, bro. Got a show to do. I look forward to meeting some of you on December 6th in Atlantic City for our BFC Traders Conference, as well as the AHRO Shareholder Meetup. And yes, we are going to be attending the Ring of Combat 86. It's going to be awesome. All right, we're going to have a good time. Going to have some dinner and some drinks and talk, shop, and it's going to be awesome. So, all right, let's get this party started. Here for his maiden voyage on the BFC, coming to us with an extensive background as an executive, a prestige medical degree from New York University School of Medicine, 40 plus years of experience in drug research, and development experience with various companies such as Bristol Myers International and Mead Johnson, the Chief Scientific Officer of Ludwig Enterprises, ticker LUDG, Dr. Marvin Hausman. Let's bring him in. Dr. Marvin Hausman, welcome to the BFC.
Yes, sir, in the flesh. I'm here. I like your starting music. It really got good rhythm.
You know, we gotta set the tone, So, I know you're excited. You have a lot to share. We've had a couple great conversations over the last week, and it's been great getting to know you. And listen, I know the company is in a quiet period, and you guys just put out a tweet. You recently engaged an investment banker and a law firm to assist you with your NASDAQ uplist. But I have a question about the share structure. Those authorized shares that are listed at 1.25 billion shares. As a shareholder, when you see that large number of shares, you know and you assume that the company intends to use them. So I got to ask you this, even though you're in a quiet period, and answer what you can. Will the authorized shares be reduced?
Absolutely, yes.
Good. And that's all he's going to give me.
So we're in a quiet period, but I think I answered it very directly.
That's it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the nitty gritty. Talk to us about your background, not only in the medical field, but also with public companies.
Well, my MD degree is from NYU School of Medicine in New York. I then was a general surgeon in Mount Sinai Hospital. I was drafted after 2 years into the Marine Corps in Vietnam as a surgeon. Had my orders changed, got accepted to NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and I served my military there at Bethesda Naval Hospital and NIH in Bethesda, Maryland. I then went on to UCLA in the urology residency and became a board-certified urologic surgeon and also a subspecialty in transplantation of kidneys. And I specialized in pediatric urology. At that time, I was approached by Bristol Myers International to develop a drug for them, an antibiotic called Duracef. I developed it successfully, and that led to the launch of my New York Stock Exchange Corporation. I co-founded it in 1980, Medco Research. That company was subsequently acquired by King Pharmaceuticals and now is a division of Pfizer. Along the way, I also consulted with many other companies, major ones in the pharmaceutical industry, developing cardiovascular drugs, other antibiotics. I also became CEO of other biotech companies that are now part of other companies on NASDAQ.
Unbelievable. And, you must feel a great sense of accomplishment, knowing that you were a part of a project that ended up as a division of Pfizer. That's remarkable.
Yeah, I can't stop. I love creativity. I'm an old person now. I'm getting older. My wife says I'm older than sand, but I feel good. I'd like to leave a legacy for healthcare. And I think we may have it in what we're going to discuss today with our mRNA genomic screening technology. I think we're onto something. I think this is game-changing technology.
And I'm going to say thank you for your service to this country, too. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, I love my country.
What inspired you to develop the mRNA Inflammatory Index, and how do you see it changing the landscape of preventative medicine for chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease?
I think you're showing how we're going to report to the patient, and it's a call to action. Green, yellow, red. It's almost like a stoplight, and you're driving your car, And, it's funny. My daughter says, well, when the car gets older, the engine light keeps coming on. She's a doctor too. And I think we have to be our own advocates as we get older and our engine light keeps coming on. And I think we can show that again as we progress, how we're going to report the data and the call to action. But mRNA is the language of DNA. DNA is fixed. And when you're born, you get the DNA from your father and your mother, but you develop into a unique individual. Something is causing the differentiation of that DNA into a unique individual. And as you progress through life, you're going to have to accommodate to certain things that happen. You have air pollution, water pollution, you're exposed to many environmental factors, and the DNA modulates, it's called epigenetics, through mRNA. And my theory is to expose you to a personalized score, do a simple cheek swab, and we'll talk about that as we go on, and analyze that for mRNA. It turns out that the cheek is a very unique area to take cells, and there's stable mRNA in them. And we've developed the technology to isolate the mRNA and so forth.
Guys, be sure to put some questions in the chat for Dr. Hausman. Great answer. And, I have to talk about this a little bit because we talked about this before when we were on the phone. And when you could have two identical twins at the opposite ends of the earth. And I'm going to genericize and use the term biomarkers. You could correct me there because I think I misused that term. But, you could have two identical twins, but based on what is happening with them in regards to the just the environmental factors,
Absolutely. And I think the word biomarker is correct. I think you have to say genetic biomarker as against other biomarkers that circulate in the body. And this is a very good example. So this has to be identical twins. So the genetics are identical. They go to different quarters of the world, and they're influenced by different factors, environmental factors. And those environmental factors trigger the DNA to express themselves differently through mRNA. And that's what we're talking about now. You can become your own advocate. You can watch your own healthcare if you monitor a personalized score based on your mRNA.
Unbelievable. I guess this makes sense, and so let's talk about this. Given your extensive experience in drug research and development with major pharmaceuticals companies, how do you see the future of pharmaceutical and nutraceutical product development evolving in the next decade? Is this something that we're going to see more of?
Yeah, I think we have too many drugs. I mean, it's really interesting. I'm not sure. I'll go say that 15,000 drugs in the physician desk reference. Most doctors only use a few of those, maybe 15 or 20 their entire lifespan. I think we need to be not reactive, wait for something to happen. We need to be proactive and try to influence our healthcare so we're not going to need all these drugs. How do we diagnose early? And I can't use the word diagnosis because the FDA doesn't like diagnosis or treatment, but how do we screen the body for chronic inflammatory changes that lead to disease? Now, most diseases, 90% of all diseases are inflammatory in origin, including cancer. And there are many top scientists who say that cancer is a wound that does not heal. It's an inflammatory wound in your body. Cancer is pretty smart. It doesn't want to die. It wants to grow. It wants to progress. So it tricks the body. It says to the body, I'm a wound. Come heal me. Send me nutrients. Send me blood vessels. And you do that with something called angiogenesis. And we even measure angiogenesis through mRNA because there are the language of angiogenesis is with mRNA. And how does it translate from DNA? So that's what we're measuring. We're measuring chronic inflammatory disease or conditions that lead to cancer, lead to heart disease. COVID is an inflammatory disorder. It causes a reaction in the lung called cytokine storm. Cytokines are inflammatory mRNA markers, biomarkers. And then fluid comes in because you have an inflammatory reaction in the lung and you have trouble breathing. And that's one of the symptoms of COVID.
Wow. Okay. Chronic inflammation. Okay. So, and guys, you guys know me. Like, I'm not a medical guy, but I've learned a lot over the last week. And so, you actually did send me that article, The Wound That Doesn't Heal. And, I had to read it a couple times and I still was trying to wrap my brain around it. And so, it's sort of like, I could just imagine what you think talking to me, like, with given your background and stuff, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. But it is truly remarkable. And I think that if you're able to capitalize on marking, the inflammatory responses. I don't know. Maybe I hope I'm saying this the right way, but we could get those indicators to prevent and do things that we need to do to really stay clear of things like cancer or Parkinson's or something like that. So it was a good read. It was a great article.
Everybody has to take care of themselves. I mean, a doctor never calls you when you're well. He doesn't pick up the phone. You suddenly got a call, 10 o'clock in the morning. How are you? They don't do that. They only see you when you're sick, and then it's hard to get in to see them. So that's why we have to be preventive, not reactive. Try to take care of your health. That's why you exercise. That's why there are many factors in staying healthy. And I hope that we have a major factor here to help people stay healthy.
The Big BS says, I need a copy of that article, please. And he's a physician, actually. He watches a show. And, I will definitely forward that to you. Guys, in the Discord, I'll actually put the link for that article in the Discord. It's a great read. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, you've co-founded multiple biopharmaceutical enterprises over the years. What key lessons have you learned from leading and building these organizations, and how do they inform your current role at Ludwig?
I think that what I've learned the most is that life is like a chess game. If you're playing chess against an equal opponent, the moment you move a piece back, you've essentially lost the game. It's the same thing in life. I mean, you have to be very thorough in what you do. You have to think it out ahead of time. You don't make sudden moves. And the same thing in drug development. It's very important when you deal with the FDA to have precise diagnosis. Make sure that the disease that you're treating is well diagnosed so that they can't come back to you and say, well, we're not sure you really diagnosed the right disease, which they can do. So I think it's a principle of pharmaceutical development is to analyze, know properly what you're doing as if you're making a move in a chess game. And the same thing, you treat the patient with dignity and you respect the patient and you make sure that you're on the patient's side as you develop drugs.
Right on. And that's the way to be, especially. And I'm going to ask you about like what we could do later on, because I want some of your input. And hey, this isn't medical advice or financial advice, and we put down that disclaimer at the beginning. But I think if I did have medical advice, you'd be the one guy I want on the show. So Dr. Marvin Hausman is joining us here live. Guys, put your questions in the chat. This is the great stuff here. I can't wait to talk about the product, but I have a couple other questions first. Make sure you put your questions in the chat. This is what we do, live DD from the source, guys. And I got to ask
interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, I think questions are more important than the lecture we're giving, because then you see what the person really wants to know. And I think it's very important for your audience to ask questions.
The only stupid question is the one unasked. So I got to ask
you.
There
are no stupid questions. There are only stupid answers.
There very well could be stupid answers. Oh, man. With your background in immunology and your research at NIH, and you were actually there when Fauci was there, and so you were there from 1960.
He came just a year before me. In
1968.
I came in 1969. And he stayed a lot longer than I did. But we were there around the same time. He was in a different institute than I was. And my work at NIH was, so I discovered the components that trigger macrophage activation and how they move to kill cancer cells. And that was my main operation there. And I published a lot of papers on that with Dr. Ralph Snyderman, who was the head of my division.
Now, I got to ask you this, just because, I'd be crazy not to. Doctors have been working on cures for cancer, cancer indicators, I mean, we're talking for 100 years, probably longer than that. I mean, where are you? I, what what's the word I'm trying to think of here? You're at ground zero, man. So what's the motivator? What Why do you think that this could be an indicator to move in the positive direction? I mean, I'm not going to say where's the cure for cancer because that's silly, but is it because, like, where are we at and where do you see things happening in like the next 10 years? I just want to pick your brain on that a little bit.
I think we're just beginning. I think chronic inflammatory reactions or conditions are key. The heart disease, I mentioned COVID, HIV, other cancers. We're now focusing on breast cancer because we have collected samples from a large number of breast cancer patients, and we start to analyze them in 3 cancers: bladder, breast, and colon. And we chose to really launch in breast. And we have very good data that we can discuss. But it's also applicable for other cancers like bladder and colon. And we're developing these profiles. How many markers right now with breast? We started with 5 specific mRNAs. Now we're at 6 with a higher specificity. And the next tranche is going to look at maybe bladder. And we're looking at other companies that are developing drugs for bladder treatment. There's one company, I think, that has announcement was made today. I'm not going to discuss it, but where they submitted to the FDA a drug that goes in an installation. You lubricate, you put a catheter in, you put it into the bladder, and you see how that responds. And they just submitted for approval. Now, we have mRNA that can determine what is the response to different drugs. So that's another area that we can get into. I mean, so you have bladder cancer and you get treated with a drug. Can we predict which drugs are best for that condition? And I think ultimately we will. And that is going to be a major development rather than use drugs and then not have them work in cancer. Let's show which anti-cancer drugs are best for that specific type of cancer and that stage of cancer. Cancers could be stage 0, 1 through 4, and you'll have different drugs at different stages.
And I gotta say, that's why I'm glad I was trying to get that question out, because I know when we say, and this is sometimes how I feel generically speaking, oh, they got cancer. Well, we need a cure for cancer. Well, there's different types of cancer. It depends what stage you get it in, and I think that when we're talking about the indicators and finding out ahead of time what medications would be the best, or what additional measures we could have to reduce the chances of cancer, early prevention, early detection is key, and we know that. And you're really at the forefront of something special here. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's talk about nutraceuticals. What role do you see nutraceuticals playing in the future of preventative medicine, and how does that align?
Obviously, you can neutralize inflammation through natural products in the environment, also through supplements. So it will play a role as we develop these markers, biomarkers for inflammation. We should be able to inhibit them. And I think as we move forward, this will be something in the future. I think we're going to have a movement back to natural medicine, which would be really a nice way to be, rather than use drugs. As I said, let's be proactive. Let's prevent. Preventive medicine rather than reactive medicine. And I think nutraceuticals and supplements will play a role there.
You use the word inhibitor, and I like the fact that you're talking natural. Like the fact that you're talking inhibitor, because if we're able to do that if we're able to have a set of criteria from early on, and I think that we really do, eat healthy, work out, do the best you can, but sometimes people do all that and they get cancer, due to environmental factors or genetics or whatever it may be. But I think that being able to do that, if we are able to, what you're on the cusp of here is going to exploit that, I think. Right?
Yes,
let's get to it. Let's
inhibit. I say neutralize.
Neutralize.
It's like you're not going to totally inhibit something. You may lower its expression.
Okay.
So, how much do you take of the supplement? How much do you take of the of the natural product that you're eating. I think we're going to neutralize it to some extent.
In the next 10 years, do you think cancer rates are probably going to go down? Do you think we're going to see a steady decline?
Well, we got a problem now, and it's going up, and
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. We're seeing a higher incidence of breast cancer, higher incidence of pancreatic cancer, higher incidence of brain tumors like glioblastoma. We're doing a study at University of Central Florida on glioblastoma that I'm involved in, and we have a higher incidence of patients developing it because we're isolating their cancers and we're attempting to treat them.
All right. The big BS is enjoying the show. I know he is. Amen. Preventative medicine instead of reactive medicine. And let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's do this. Let's talk about what your work is going on, what work you're doing, and the new developments at Revealia. So tell us a little bit about what's going down over there.
Well, as I mentioned before, we're going to go after other cancers. We have breast cancer now, which we're launching, and we hope to have our test in the hands of the consumer by the end of this year. We can discuss that as we move forward. I think we're going to go on to bladder cancer. We're going to go on to maybe heart disease, because heart disease is an inflammatory disorder. Myocarditis means inflammation of the muscle of the heart. Nephritis, inflammation of the tissue of the kidney. Hepatitis, inflammation of the tissue of the liver. I can go on and on and on. There's a big road ahead of us that we can use for our mRNA screening process.
All right. Now, you actually just, there's a video out there, a statement on behalf of Revealia. And I saw this video and I just wanted to play this for you and then you could comment after. All right.
Sure.
Where would the world be without women? Mothers, daughters, partners. They shape our lives, lead nations, and change the world. Yet, cancer's impact on women is devastating. Introducing Revealia, the future of cancer screening via a simple cheek swab.
So your comments, why breast cancer first, and why this route? So I go for it. Floor is yours.
Oh, I wish that I had developed this before. I mean, I'll talk about something personal. My wife came down with breast cancer 2 years ago. I started developing this 5-6 years ago. Now it's in production. Perhaps I could have diagnosed her earlier. I mean, I love her dearly. It hits home. I mean, when you played that, I had an emotional reaction to it. I know the question is always asked, BRCA1, BRCA2. This is a mutation of this germline of DNA, BRCA1, BRCA2, BRCA1, BRCA2. My wife was BRCA1, BRCA2 negative. And we're finding in our sample collection now, in our breast cancer analysis, that many of our patients that we're analyzing are BRCA1, BRCA2 negative. Now that's DNA. So maybe we need to supplement the DNA with our test as well.
Huh.
This is a very important point. I mean, it strikes home to me, and it's going to strike home to a lot of other people. You have to be your own advocate. There's nothing wrong with doing a cheek swab. You could be at a bus stop. You could be at a red light. Take out that swab, rub your cheek. I'll show you how you do it. Put it in an envelope, send it to us. What do you lose by doing this?
I think more people, and this is it. And actually, I'm going to show some of the pictures of the product. But I think a lot of people would take advantage of it more when they take their own health in their own hands. I'm a person, man. I get white coat syndrome. I'm nervous just talking to you, Dr. Hausman. You get in a doctor, blood pressure goes up, you get nervous. Some people avoid that situation. All right. And some people don't want to be in that situation. So having that.
They avoid mammograms.
They do.
A lot of women are sensitive. They don't palpate their own breasts. I think it's very important to be proactive with your health.
This gives people that.
I keep saying it. Become your advocate. There's only one life, and it's yours. You're an experiment of one. And no one else is going to you have to take care of yourself. I'm going to say it many times.
I'm going to quote that and I'm going to use that. You are an experiment of one. And I love it. Check out this product. These were just handed over to us yesterday, guys. And so talk to us about this and what influenced the design of it. And you actually have one you're going to show us a little bit in person, but go ahead.
Well, it's nicer to show it here and discuss it. I mean, it's a simple pink box. It has the name of the company, and the name of the product is called Revealia. And the name of the company is, we're going to change it to Revealia to go along with the product. Inside this box is just a cotton tip swab. I have it right here. So if you show me, this is the cotton tip swab. It comes in a health hazard enclosure, and inside is a swab and a container. I'm taking it out. It's so simple. It's very interesting. The camera is opposite, it's like a mirror image. You put it in your mouth, you rub your cheek, swirl 10 times on this side, go to the other side. God, I can get dizzy thinking this. Swirl the other side, open the container, put it in, swirl it around, break off the tip, close it, put it in the hazard bag that we supply you with. Here's a hazard bag. Put it in an envelope, be a pre-registered envelope paid for by the company, and send it to us. And within 7 to 10 days, you'll know what your Revealia inflammatory index is. If you put up the thing I sent earlier to you, with the red light, green light, yes. So you will know where you land on this illustration.
Wow.
For example, in the result above, a Revealia inflammatory index of 24 indicates that 24% of your sensitivity indicates that your relative risk is low based on our model. Now, this score would suggest that the patient's inflammatory markers place them in the 24th percentile of risk among our tested population. Now, keep in mind that we're using machine learning artificial intelligence. So as we update the number of patients, so we've now got 90 people with breast cancer. As we collect samples, another 30, another 40, we will update through artificial intelligence the score, and we can contact you as your score changes. This is an ongoing, very dynamic, personalized index.
When you take the test, what's its preservation rate? I mean, say you take the test today and mail, let's say there's a delay with mail. How long does it take before it degrades? I guess you could say.
Doesn't. One of the beauties of using the cheek swab, and we have patented technology that we've registered about the cheek swab, and we have patented technology how to isolate the mRNA from the cheek swab. We've actually stored this for months and studied it and got the same results. And that's in a recent patent filing, provisional patent that we filed. So a patient or a person could forget to mail it for 2 weeks. It's still very active. Pick up the package, mail it, and we'll still get accurate results. I think we're one of the only tests that's that sensitive and stable.
Right on. Guys, put your questions in the chat. So when people send in their test, and how do we access the results? Is there an app, or will it be web-based, like an account login? What's going to happen there?
Well, you're going to have a portal. We're under HIPAA compliance. One of the most important things is patient and to remain anonymous. I don't want my data going wherever you want it to go. I want it to go only to me and to my doctor. And we're going to adhere to that formula. So only the patient and the doctor will receive. And of course, the patient has to give us permission to send it to the doctor, because you control your life. You control your identity. And we want to respect that.
And I think a concern of many people, and I just read, earlier, that 23andMe is getting bought up by a private company. And so now they have all these DNA samples. And I guess there's a way to basically like stop them from doing that. But like what you're saying is there's no concern of that here because you have to abide by HIPAA.
Absolutely. And you're going to have to sign, when you sign our consent, it'll be HIPAA compliant. There's no question about it.
Excellent.
So we will adhere directly to the HIPAA rules. These are written in stone, HIPAA rules.
Yeah. And guys, there's some great questions in the chat. We're going to get to those in a little bit. Who should use Revealia? All right. So what are some personal indicators that one should take the screening?
Oh, I just want to show the box because I have it here. Okay.
Looks great.
Show one more time so people can see what we may change the color, maybe from black to blue, but this is our initial box, what it looks like. And that's what you're going to get in the mail. And again, please ask your questions because I held up the box. What was your question?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was tranced by the beautiful box. What can I say? So who should take it? So what are some personal indicators that one should take the test? And who should use it? Who's this targeting?
I think anyone. I mean, come on, anything. If you think you have a chronic inflammatory disorder or you're bothered by your health, you lose nothing by having this screening. Of course, we're now focused on breast cancer, but we have a 48 gene panel that we designed. We designed this with the help of Thermo Fisher Scientific, which today I think is the largest genetic company in the world. And so I gave them 80 hits and I sequenced 48 of those hits. You have to be able to sequence the gene, the mRNA, to specifically diagnose what it is. And so they did a beautiful job. They created a 48 gene chip, a microarray, and we could run that for other diseases, not just breast cancer. It turns out that we have great data with breast cancer, and we're moving ahead with that. But I think it's, for example, if you have arthritis, there are rheumatoid factors that are involved with mRNA, and we should be able to develop an mRNA panel for rheumatic diseases.
How does a test work for women with dense breasts who often have to have ultrasounds after a mammogram?
I think it has nothing to do with the density or size of your breast. It has to do with your genetics and your cheek. You're taking cheek cells, which for whatever reason, the cells in the cheek have accumulated the mRNA to an extent that surprised us. And remember, the mouth is open to the world. And maybe the way the human being was formed, the mouth is a very sensitive area to supervise what happens, what you eat, what you experience. And maybe that's why the mRNA is well represented in cheek cells. And we're going to continue just specializing in cheek cell pathology and technology.
Nice. And like I said, I want to get to some questions, but I want to follow up again. So like you talk about the extensive data that's going to go on with this. And I know I don't want to look too far ahead, but you're starting with breast cancer. What's next? I mean, what other cancers? I mean, talk about the correlation between inflammation and diseases. What's next after breast cancer? What do you see happening next?
Well, there's several things after this. One, if we have mRNA that's specific to breast cancer, we could develop theoretically in the future by ourselves or with the help of major pharma, or something called inhibitor RNA, RNAi. So if you wanted to inhibit one of the genes that's in our microarray that pops up and is very selective and expressed in your condition, theoretically in the future, an inhibitor to neutralize that RNA could be developed. In addition, we're going to go after other cancers, brain tumor, glioblastoma. We're going to go after colon cancer, bladder. I'm a urologist, so I have a very high interest. I developed a drug called BCG immunotherapy. In 1975, I published a paper. It won first prize in urology in the United States. I did it with John Fahey at UCLA. He was the former head of the National Cancer Institute. Brilliant man, may his soul rest in peace. John and I were very good friends, and we developed this together, BCG immunotherapy. It's now approved by the FDA. It's a drug, and it's all over the world. And I think that I could develop mRNA profiles to determine the response to BCG immunotherapy. And I know a couple of mRNA genes that I'm working on, and we're going to launch them maybe next year to allow the urologist to test whether that patient will respond to BCG immunotherapy.
Wow. And congratulations on that achievement.
Thank
That's
you.
that's big stuff. And I gotta ask one more question, and then we're gonna hit up the chat. Will you be able to have one swab test that could detect like multiple inflammatory markers, like all at once, or maybe will each screening have its own test? Like like if you want to take the breast cancer test, I'm trying to use the right words, guys. By the way, so Dr. Hausman is really making my brain work here. Or like, will it be just a breast cancer test? Can it be? Can you get the combo? Can you get the lung cancer and the breast cancer test? Or like, do you see what I'm asking you here?
Yes, absolutely. We when a patient sends in say we now have advanced to the point where we know 5 or 6 major markers. We call it an F1 index, a harmonic mean, where we compare sensitivity, recall, specificity, all in this index through artificial intelligence. It's called a harmonic mean, F1. We know we have a 0.90, say, harmonic mean with one group of 6 biomarkers. We can go to 0.89 with another group of biomarkers for breast cancer. So we're picking the highest harmonic mean for breast cancer. But we had to run the 48 genes ahead of time. And then we selected, for example, Dr. Kyle Lambert, who's our statistical expert, he's now at Nike Corporation, the director of statistical science there. He developed this whole statistical package for us. And we now, and this is all patented, and so we're updating this every day. And so when you run, so we just submitted a patent with 3,306 mRNA variables. Think about that, 3,306 mRNA variables in breast cancer. And we selected the top 3, and we're now launching the top 1. Wow. And so we are creating a selective test for breast cancer with the 6 top mRNA genes that give us the best harmonic mean of, say, 0.89. We could do that for all cancers. So we would start again, take the cheek swab in people who are afraid of bladder cancer, for example, and run it and see in bladder cancer, you have to have a diagnosis first of bladder cancer because the test was developed in people who have been diagnosed positively with breast cancer. The doctor said, these patients have breast cancer. We have 40 clinics throughout the United States that have sent us samples over the last 5 years. We have over 3,000 samples that we've collected. We've chosen those that were positive for breast cancer. We then would go on and choose the next set for bladder cancer or heart disease or stroke. And we can keep doing the same thing. Then once we develop this panel, we then would exclusively ask Thermo Fisher to give us the primers. And I don't want to bore your audience with primers, but these are primers selectively for those genes. And they go into a sensitive test. So we don't have to run all 48 again. It's a quick turnaround. We have a special machine from Thermo Fisher or one of the other genetic companies, and we could run this quickly. We don't run all 48 again. We run the 6 that are involved in breast cancer, and we give you a diagnosis. Not a diagnosis. We give you a screening indicator. Can't use the word diagnosis. We're not diagnosing.
That's something I learned, by the way, in talking with Dr.
Hausman.
Hausman.
Got to be very careful. We don't diagnose. We give you an indication of awareness. This is a very important discussion point. This is not an absolute diagnosis. You don't have to worry. It's a screening. It's to say, hey, take care of yourself. It's a call to action. Call your doctor. Or don't worry about it, but just be aware. Maybe run the test again. It's the same thing as Cologuard is out there for colon cancer. They don't diagnose that you definitely have colon cancer. They tell you, hey, we now have an indication, but they use DNA, by the way. We're a more sensitive, but we're not looking at colon right now. We're looking at breast. But it's an indication to be aware of where you are in life and what to do next.
Great in-depth answer. Thank you for that. And it was funny because when we were talking, I learned to differentiate between, diagnostic and screening. And yes, I did just ask if Revealia has a screening combo platter. But thank you for answering that question. I really appreciate it. Let's get to the chat. Let's do this. All right, we have a bunch here. The Big BS, please explain the science on how to detect biomarkers for cancers using a cheek swab, which is a different tissue type and is not close to the cancer in location that is being screened.
Great question. Great question. And why are they accumulating in the cheek? We have to, what happened in life that the cheek cell is representative of what's happening in the breast or represented in the colon? We're going to be looking into that, but thank God we've discovered that. The cheek is the best cell to isolate mRNA for us. I mean, you could have a liquid biopsy, but that's invasive. Put a needle into the breast, do a liquid biopsy and run the mRNA. We can do it with a cheek swab. And I think we're blessed with the fact that the cheek is an area so available and so reproducible to diagnose the mRNA for different diseases.
Excellent. Let's get to Jess in LA. From your recent press release, when do you anticipate roughly launch date of Revealia, and what will be the first sales channels?
Well, I'd like to launch it by the end of the year. I mean, one of the things, and when the question came up earlier, it's very important to have HIPAA compliance and have a portal that the patient has access to. You can always run a test, but how do you get the data to the patient? That's what we need to make sure. As I said earlier, you got to play the chess game to win. We want to be absolute before we launch it. We want to know that the patient, the patient can have access whenever you want to your data, and then you could send it to your doctor. So we hope to have this all buttoned up by the end of the year.
Excellent. And I believe you already answered this one. Expansion possibilities for other cancer beyond breast cancer testing based on the technology/research. There you go. You could give them the answer that you just gave us.
Yeah, but my love as a urologist is bladder cancer. Not that I want bladder cancer, but I'd like to go after that next. And I think we're going to, as in Revealia, we're going to have to raise money. We're onto very unique, game-changing technology in medicine. I'll go online to say that with my experience. I've never seen stuff like this. It blows me away to be involved in the development of this test. And I would like to do it in other cancers. And I said, I'd like to do it in glioblastoma. Merck has a drug out there, temozolomide, that only has a 25% response rate. Perhaps I can improve that response rate through the technology we have.
Excellent. The Bull, I hope you appreciated that answer. Big BS again. If you can detect biomarkers for a particular cancer, I would think you can develop individual treatments for that type of cancer.
Yes, I mentioned that earlier, that you can develop an inhibitor RNA. So you have one RNA, and then you give the mirror image of that RNA, and you make an inhibitor RNA, so it combines and it neutralizes that mRNA. And that's what I want to do.
Right on. The Bull, they're firing these questions at you. I love it. Great job, guys. Distribution model kind of reminds me of ColorGuard, who you referenced. What obstacles, challenges did they face that you may come across, and how will you overcome?
Well, I'm not an expert on their marketing plan in Cologuard. I just mentioned Cologuard because I know about the test and I've had colonoscopy, but I can't tell you head to head how we're going to do things different than Cologuard because I'm not aware what Cologuard did in terms of what failures they've had and how they made mistakes. So I can't answer that question. Sorry.
Right on. Revealia, they are their own beast. All right, we got Paul right here. Mammograms are suggested at age 50. Women are getting breast cancer in their 20s now. Take this 2 times a year as a proactive measure. Would you agree with, is this the kind of mindset, like somebody who's prone to, let's say a family has long history of breast cancer. You're 22 years old. Your mom got it when she was 25. Boom, you should probably take this test just as a screening, as a precautionary, and open up that line of communication with your physician.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned my wife. I mean, here it hits home. Her grandmother died of breast cancer. Her aunt died of breast cancer. Her mother had breast cancer. In fact, her mother is the oldest cancer survivor in the United States. She's more than 50 years. And last week she turned 96, breast cancer survivor. And so, yes, I wish I had this test for all of them. And no matter what age, what do you lose by getting a screening of your chronic inflammatory process that's ongoing in your body? You lose nothing. It's like I always keep saying, you go to Starbucks for 30 days. This test is less than 30 days coffee at Starbucks. What do you lose by running it?
Exactly. Our final question from the audience.
No, I shouldn't mention Starbucks. They're going to go after me. I don't know.
I haven't been drinking caffeine, so now you're teasing me, man. All right, here it is. If a person sends in a sample and you later on detect a biomarker for a newly discovered biomarker panel for a new disease, will the system notify the person of that information? That's a great question.
It's a great question. We're not set up for that yet, but yes, ultimately we could do that. Yes, because we'd have to have the patient give us permission to do that, because remember, we're HIPAA compliant. So we will have this mRNA stored, because when we isolate it from the cheek swab, if they say to us, we'd like you to run it again, they could give us permission to do that a year or two later.
Right on. Great questions from the audience, guys. This is awesome stuff. Now,
questions are the best. Questions are the best, because this is when you learn what people really want to know.
You know, here's a question. All right. How much is the test? And do you think this is going to be covered by insurance? What process do you have to go through to get this covered by insurance?
Okay. It's going to be a direct-to-consumer test. It's going to be $249, and it will not be covered initially by insurance. It's a lab-developed test. We use a contracted, clear, CAP-approved lab, a very fine lab in the United States, FDA examined. We ultimately will publish an article, for example, on breast cancer. I would love to present at the ASCO meetings, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, next year in 2025. And once we have that article and the data published, we then can go to the insurance carriers for reimbursement. And we intend to pursue this whole pathway. And that's been my success in the past. As you asked me, all the years I've developed, I've been successful in developing this whole technology and getting insurance reimbursement.
Okay. I crossing my mind, and I want to bring this back up. Yeah, you had that acquisition with Novamentis, and you have, the testing information, the questionnaires, and a patent that focuses on inflammation, as you discussed earlier. How is this ultimately going to fit into Ludwig?
It fits in beautifully. In fact, I was consulted on autism years ago by Novamentis Life Science in Canada, because I'm pursued by many companies to consult because of my background in cancer and in inflammatory disease. So autism is an inflammatory disease. It's called ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. It's a disorder. It's not a precise diagnosis. And so I developed an mRNA profile for the brain. Remember, the mRNA profile that's being developed in Revealia is for the periphery. You have a blood-brain barrier that protects the brain from the rest of the body. And so I developed it, and we've already started testing cheek swabs. And I said, when Nova made it available, I told the powers that be at Ludwig, which is now Revealia, to acquire this, and that's what they successfully did. My dream is to start launching a product in autism, because we have data now that we have filed a patent on. We acquired the technology where we have shown that we could predict maybe the response of an autistic child to specific questions, anxiety questions, social interaction, based on his inflammatory mRNA profile.
As an educator, that's crazy. I mean, it's early, but that's crazy. But that would be, I could just imagine what an effective tool that would be in education.
Oh, unbelievable. Because you have specific genetic Fragile X syndrome, which I wrote the protocol for Health Canada. is a very specific disorder in autism, very specific. And we've started studying that as well as other autistic children. And that's why I wanted to acquire this. We're going to have to raise money, but I would like to continue studying this throughout the United States and Canada.
Right. Comment from Paul. This sounds like a platform technology, start breast cancer and then go from there. Now, autism. Wow. I mean, yeah. And that affects everybody. Like I said, from the educational standpoint, that would be a game changer right there.
I have to stay healthy. We have to raise money, and I'm willing to keep working 24/7 because it's very exciting.
Question here from Marianne Ruisi Schultz. Will his tests ever be available to distinguish different autoimmune diseases?
Yeah, I'm an immunologist. Yes, ultimately, yes. When I was in medical school a long time ago, everything was an autoimmune disease. If they didn't know the diagnosis, it's autoimmune. It's a wastebasket. Now we have very specific autoimmune. You have lupus for the kidney. You have sarcoidosis. Yes, we will have specific, I think in the future, mRNA panels to differentiate different diseases of the immune system.
Right on. Thank you. All right. I want you launched the website. All right. The website is up to date. It's up to speed. Can we check it out? Want to surf it? Let's surf it. Let's check it out.
Questions coming.
Yeah. Check this out, guys. They are launched. All right. And so let's want to walk us through this.
I just saw one question that has to do with post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I initially was drafted into the Marines. I was lucky to have my orders changed, went to NIH and stayed in fact, my daughter was born at Bethesda Naval Hospital. And I'm very sensitive to veterans. And I'm very sensitive to their problems. You send them off to war, you train them, they come back with post-traumatic stress disorder. Even first responders, policemen, firemen. It's close to my heart. And yes, post-traumatic stress disorder is a chronic inflammatory disorder. You don't commit suicide because you're genetically endowed to commit suicide. You commit suicide because you get a hyperexcitable state in your nerves, and then you get out of control. And I think we theoretically could diagnose that ahead of time. And in fact, I was in a meeting last night with people from Tallahassee, and I intend to present in the state of Florida to the legislature about post-traumatic stress disorder and chronic inflammation.
That is unbelievable. I could just, well, you're impacting regular health. You're impacting the education department now. And now we're going to be working with the VA. Now, he didn't say he's going to be working with the VA, but I'm saying, imagine if we have these biomarkers, correct? And we have the availability to focus on the inflammatory response to what happens with soldiers with PTSD. I mean, that's unbelievable. Really unbelievable.
Is in the brain. It's different than the profile we're using in the body. These are different specific genes that have to do with brain function, cognition, cancer in the brain, glioblastoma. The body is unique, and I hope that we are probing it properly.
Right on. Let's take a look at your website. This is the Revealia website. We could walk through this. You guys could join the wait list, join Revealia, and just for the hell of it, right now, I'm going to I'm going to put my email in here. Revealia.com. You guys should totally get on this, get on the waiting list, and check it out. Let's go back to the main area here. The website looks really good. You guys did a really nice. It's great to have a company that actually has it together and has a beautiful website with their product, and it's not some dead site. So congratulations on the launch. I appreciate that. I know shareholders appreciate that. This looks great. Is there anything you want to share specifically on this?
No,
looks great.
We just launched it, so it's a pleasure.
Yeah, this looks excellent. Guys, Revealia.com.
Now you got my picture there also.
I know. Look at it's a handsome gentleman coming up. All right, there he is, Marvin S. Hausman, MD. Yeah, no, this is great. You're doing great work. I'm telling you, I'm very excited for what you guys are bringing to the table. You're going to revolutionize the cancer screening industry. One of a kind. I think it's going to be amazing. And you know what? Like, I'm already thinking of people in my life, that I'm like, oh, wow, they should take the breast cancer test. And, be like, I mean, it's important, because the truth is
I
this.
would like to become a household word. I would like people
Yeah.
to, if I could help people, that's all I want to do in my life at my age now. I want to leave a legacy for healthcare. And I have goosebumps when I think of people at home and they're yearning to take care of themselves. And we need to give them knowledge, and we need to do it. As I said before, you're an experiment of one. And I need all the help I can to reach out to throughout society, let people know what our capabilities are. The key, I'm not a marketing guru. I'm a scientist, and I can only create through my body and my mind. And we need to get the word out there to let people know this is available.
And the truth is, this affects us all. We all know somebody that has had a cancer scare, is battling cancer, or may have passed from cancer. This affects everybody, anybody. This is a problem. This is a global problem, and this is an everybody problem. Unfortunately, that's the case. And I want to thank you, Dr. Marvin Hausman, for your time today. It's been highly educational, and we're going to have you back on as things progress. And we've learned a lot. I'm learning a lot, guys. I was educated this week, and I'm still getting educated. So I want to give you a final thought to share with shareholders or potential shareholders that are looking at LUDG and looking at the launch of Revealia.
Yes, I would ask the people who are paying attention to what we've done and what we're presenting to ask questions. Ask about your health. As I said earlier, there's no stupid questions. There's only stupid answers. We're here to help you. And I think, Eric, if you want to accumulate these questions, I'd be happy to come on again and answer the questions. I'm serious. I want to reach out to people. I did this in LA for a while when I was at UCLA. I had a program every Sunday morning called Talk to the Doctor. And I went on and we got some of the most interesting people asking questions. It was wonderful. And I would like to continue to do that. With your help, I'm available. And I want to thank you very much for taking time to interview me.
Absolutely. And we will absolutely do an open Q&A, and we could have the open chat with the doctor right here on the BFC. And we could, hey, with your expertise and knowledge, it'd be great to have you on for an open Q&A. So we could actually host an open Q&A in regards to all the things that Dr. Hausman is well-versed in and professional in. I mean, you've been great, man. So thank you so much. I appreciate
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. And this is when I get to say, get him out of here. Get this guy out of here. Go, get out of here. So, Marvin, hang out backstage. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. It was a very educational episode. Ticker LUDG. Watch out, because I think they are going to revolutionize the cancer screening industry. Truly do. Notice I did not say cancer diagnostic. You see, I learned something. This week. So remember, guys, there is more that binds us than breaks us. You guys have an awesome rest of the week. Update show on Sunday. Peace out.